So without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Here we go. Okay, so I'm hoping now you can all see that just fine. And without further ado, we'll begin. Okay, so in today's session, we're going to be looking at an overview of apprenticeships, particularly for parents. Okay, so we're going to start off by looking at what apprenticeships are, the different range of apprenticeships that are available, the different levels of apprenticeships and what they all mean. Then we'll talk a little bit about degree level apprenticeships, and then we'll talk about how you can support your children through the apprenticeship hunt process. Okay, so first of all, very basics. What actually is an apprenticeship? Well, an apprenticeship is an on-the-job training program that mixes work with study, for which the apprentice gets paid, and at the end of which the apprentice has a qualification that entitles him or her to work in his or her chosen field. All right. So every apprentice earns a wage. Don't confuse them with internships, which are unpaid. The national minimum wage for an apprentice is £3.90 an hour, which often puts people off because it's lower than the national minimum wage. However, I would stress that really is only the minimum wage. Most apprenticeship programs pay more than that. Some of the higher and degree level apprenticeship programs pay into the high teens and 20s, £1,000 a year. All right. And the average starting salary for a degree level apprentice in 2019 was £17,500 a year. All right. So every apprentice will work for at least 30 hours a week. They'll spend about 80% of their time working and getting paid for it with the experts, and 20% of the time studying at a college or university, depending on the level of apprenticeship that they're doing. All right. They will get a qualification for their endeavours, and the qualifications vary from the equivalent of GCSE and A levels all the way up to the equivalent of degrees and even master's degrees now. All right. I can hear one other person in the background. You might need to turn your microphone off, please, if that's all right. So yeah, but it is not a soft option. It is difficult. There is, it's hard to mix that work with that study. Obviously, they have to abide by the professional standards of the organisation. But with all those responsibilities, there are also rights. They are workers, so they have workers' rights. They get access to sick pay, to holiday pay. They can't be summarily dismissed for no reason, and they have the same kind of redundancy protections that any other adult worker would have. Right? So that's apprenticeships for you in a nutshell. But now on to some apprenticeship myth busting. All right, we've spoken about the salary already. One anxiety that people have about apprenticeships is they think, well, apprentices are paid less than normal full-time workers. So surely the apprentice gets taken on, used as cheap labour, dropped at the end of the programme, only to be replaced by another apprentice as a conveyor belt of cheap labour. And at the end, the apprentice doesn't have a job. All right, that's an anxiety that people have. But actually, it's not borne out by the data at all. In fact, 90% of people who successfully complete their apprenticeship stay on with the company which they did it for the first few years, all right? And many of the 10% that don't are actually going on to seek more attractive options elsewhere. So the employability rates for apprentices post-apprenticeship are actually very good. Now, you can now gain a degree through an apprenticeship. And if your child goes about getting their degree that way, they do not pay a single penny of tuition fees. I'm sure you know that if a child goes to university, they have to pay £9,000 a year for the privilege. Not if they get it for an apprenticeship, they don't, because the company and the government pay that for them. So instead of accumulating debt to get their degree, your child could actually get paid to get their degree instead. Now, some of the young people will worry, about the social life aspect. Are they going to be able to enjoy themselves if they've got this apprenticeship, this job, and the study, right? To be fair, most apprentices probably would have less free time in the working week than a university or sixth form student. However, because their work is mixed in with their study, they do not need to get a Saturday or after school job, so that time frees up, and they can enjoy themselves properly with the free time they do have because they're earning that wage, all right? So it kind of balances out a little bit. With regards to degree apprenticeship specifically, many young people are attracted to the idea of getting out from under their parents' feet for the first time in their lives. That's why they want to go, part of the reason why they want to go to university. And they know that most apprentices stay at home whilst they do the apprenticeship. All right, now that is true, but apprentices can relocate. Some companies will subsidize young people to relocate, others won't. All right, it's just something you have to check out during the application process. I have got fireworks going on near my house. I hope you can't hear that in the background. Apologies if you can. So you can see now on the board the range of different apprenticeship opportunities that are available. It used to be that apprenticeships were mostly vocational, hairdressing, mechanics, plumbing, construction, beauty, and what have you. And those opportunities still exist, and they're still really important for thousands of young people every single year. But the breadth of apprenticeship opportunities has increased a lot in the last few years. Okay, you can get into accountancy, teaching, cybersecurity, surveying, nursing, journalism, to name just a few. Every single sector now has an apprenticeship route into it. I'm not saying every single job within the sector. So, for example, you can become a solicitor through a degree apprenticeship, but not yet a barrister. And if you wanted to work in medicine, you could become a nurse through an apprenticeship, but not yet a doctor. All right. So every single sector, but not every single job. Here are some examples of those big name brands that offer apprenticeship opportunities. About half of the apprenticeships you'd come across will be with small companies you won't have heard of before. And in some ways, they offer very attractive programs, because if there are only 7 people in the team and your child is one of them, that company's success depends on that young person doing very well, right? So they invest a lot of time and energy into making sure they flourish. But that being said, these big name brands also have lots of very well vetted and well respected apprenticeship programs. Young people who are interested in engineering, Network Rail offers 120 apprenticeships in London every single year for engineering. Interested in ICT, in computer programming, Google. If they're interested in public service, the Royal Air Force and all branches of the military offer apprenticeship programs, as do the Metropolitan Police. As of this year, if they're a humanity kind of student, they like their history, their geography, their English. Such young people often go into the civil service, and the Cabinet Office you can see on the screen, but actually all branches of the civil service run apprenticeship programs. And even if they're artistic, there are still apprenticeship opportunities for them. They might look to a company like ITV or BBC to find an opportunity there. Okay, there's an awful lot out there. One final remark about the companies is I would say don't be too prejudiced based on what the company's most famous for. All right, all of these big companies have lots of different departments they need to help them run. So you may have seen, Pret or Starbucks on the last slide, and you might think, well, would that be an apprenticeship in making a cup of coffee or a fancy sandwich? And the answer is no. It could be working in any one of their many departments. Okay, so you could find yourself doing a cybersecurity or a finance apprenticeship at a company like Pret, where you wouldn't necessarily expect to find that kind of opportunity. All right, so it's really important to keep an open mind when you're looking for apprenticeship programs to apply for. So on to the nitty gritty of the levels then, because this can be a little bit confusing. All right, so there are different apprenticeship levels, and they are done at different times of young people's lives. All right, the very first kind of apprenticeship you'll come across is an intermediate or level 2 apprenticeship. Now, these are the equivalent of GCSEs, and they will be started age 16 once year 11 is finished. Now, level 2s have an extra focus on literacy and numeracy. So if your child is one of these young people that struggle to get high grades in English or maths or across the board, an apprenticeship route might still be available to them. They would just have to start at level 2, all right? And then they might move on to a level 3, which are A-level equivalents, all right? Now, other young people just go straight into the level 3, all right? But level 3s are A-level equivalents, and for levels 2 and 3, the studying component is done at a college. Now, for many sectors, a level 3 is all you'll need to qualify yourself to work in that industry. Yeah. So the vocations, like hairdressing, mechanics, plumbing, level 3s are usually fine. If you want to be an estate agent, even, or many business qualifications, finish at level 3 as well. All right. And again, they'll be done in lieu of going to sixth form to do normal A levels. The other ones are higher and degree level apprenticeships. Okay. Now, higher apprenticeships can be levels 4 through 7, although most of them are level 4 or 5. And a higher apprenticeship is the equivalent of a foundation degree. Okay. Now, some people will turn their nose up at the idea of a foundation degree because, their child is, studious, academic. They were always going to go to university, so they should get a full degree. But I would just say on that note, don't be too quick to judge. Some of the higher apprenticeships, those foundation degrees, actually pay very well while they're working towards them. There was one from Facebook over the summer that was paying £25,000 a year to an 18-year-old in all likelihood, and that was only a level 4. All right, and that person will go on to have a very lucrative career in the future. And some of those higher apprenticeships are very worth doing, and sometimes they can go on afterwards to do a full degree anyway. All right. Speaking of which, level 6s and 7s for the most part are full degree level apprenticeships, with level 7s sometimes even being masters. Yeah, you can even get a master's degree through the apprenticeship route now. Okay, so talking about different delivery models. Thank you. Talking about different delivery models. So as I said earlier, 20% of the time will be spent off the job learning. All right. Now, sometimes a tutor might come on site to instruct them further. In the COVID era, a lot of it is online, and that may continue to be the case even after COVID, as everyone's become more comfortable with the technology and it's convenient. But most of it will be in a classroom setting, again, at a college or university, depending on the level of apprenticeship that you're doing. So a few more remarks on higher and degree level apprenticeships specifically then, okay? So much of this is the same as we've already discussed. You learn, you earn, you avoid that debt. Now, one thing I would stress is that the apprentice is still regarded as a student, even though they're working 80% of the time. That 20% study time is at a university. And it's the university that issues the qualification. Because one worry that people have is that degree apprenticeships are some kind of subordinate degree, or it will say degree apprenticeship on the certificate, and it's not quite the same, or might be looked down upon. That is not the case at all. If you're doing a finance degree apprenticeship with Barclays Bank, Barclays Bank can't issue you with a qualification because they're not an educational institution. It has to be the university that issue the degree. So it is a normal degree, just achieved slightly differently. A normal degree, but you don't have to pay to do it, and instead you get paid and you get valuable work experience. This is the other really important point. Employers are always saying to young people, we want candidates with experience. Young people are always replying, well, we haven't got any experience yet because we've been studying, right? This is a great way of breaking that catch-22, because you are proving to employers that you can do the job not just in theory, but in actuality, because you've been doing it whilst you've been studying, all right? And that work experience puts them in very good stead for promotions going forward in the future. And as I say, most of them are actually retained by the companies with which they did it with, because they, the company wants to reap the reward of having trained them. Yeah. Now, I will say that there are a couple of downsides to these degree apprenticeships. The first of which is that they sometimes take a little longer to complete. That's because you're spending less time studying, so the programs are elongated. But that won't always be true. It really depends on how the program's been designed. All right. The other difficulty is getting on a program in the first place. I always say it's really important that young people apply to both normal university and also to their degree apprenticeship places, because the two systems don't talk to each other. You can apply for as many degree apprenticeships as you like, and it doesn't interfere with your UCAS allotment. And it's the same for level 3 apprenticeships. If your child wants a level 3 apprenticeship, or they're thinking about sixth form, apply for both. That way they'll avoid disappointment if they don't land an apprenticeship program. Okay, so always keep the options open would be my advice. Okay, so moving on to the next part of the session then, supporting your child to search and apply for apprenticeships. All right, obviously as parents, you want to have the knowledge and the tools to help your child make informed decisions about their future. So hopefully this session will help with that. All right. So apprenticeship vacancies. The first thing I would say about apprenticeship vacancies is there is no deadline. All right. If you're applying to a college to study there for sixth form, for example, that institution might have a deadline. And if students are applying to university, they have the UCAS deadline. All right. And schools will coach them and make sure they get their application in on time. There is no deadline for apprenticeship vacancies. You are not applying to the college or the university. You are applying to the employer. All right. Now, some employers will advertise in September and find their person in December, even though the actual opportunity doesn't start until the following September. So if you only apply in the spring and summer terms, you miss out on some of these earlier opportunities, and you don't want to be doing that because, as we've discussed, these apprenticeship programs can be competitive. All right, so be ready to apply from September if your child is in year 11 or in year 13. Yeah. Apprenticeships are advertised in different places, and we are going to look at some of those places in a moment. And as I said, you're applying to the employer, not to the university or the college. Entry requirements will vary. Every employer is different. They tend to be a bit more flexible with results, these apprenticeship programs, than like a university would be. That's because they're looking for an employee who fits their organization. So if the results are close, they'll tend to be a bit more flexible. And the application process will vary. Just so if you're applying to different jobs, different companies have different processes. The same is true for apprenticeships because it is partly a job that the young person is applying for. All right. Okay, so how do you find an apprenticeship to apply for? Right. The first place to start your search will be the government website findanapprenticeship.gov. All right. Now, Find an Apprenticeship is easy to use. It's free to register on. You can do your research and follow links to get applications off to specific companies, and you can manage alerts. All right. So if we have a look at this in a bit more detail, once the young person has created their account, the search process is very easy. All right. They put in the kind of apprenticeship they're looking for. They put in their postcode, how far they're prepared to travel, and again, remind them that it's not like traveling to school. You have to travel a bit further to go to work, so they might want to set the radius quite wide, like 20 miles or more. And then the level of apprenticeship they're after. And the website helpfully generates a report that shows all of the apprenticeship opportunities that are currently online that match their search criteria. All right. And you can see the closing date, the start date, how long it would take them to get there from home, the apprenticeship title, the company it's with, and they can follow the link to find out more information like the entry criteria. All right. Now it's a live site, so opportunities are always coming off and coming on. It's constantly in a state of flux. It's never the same. But one thing they can do to help manage that is hit a bell notification system that will allow them, that will send them a text or an email every time a new opportunity comes online that matches their search criteria. All right. Now, findanapprenticeship.gov is the largest compilation of apprenticeship opportunities in the country. So it's definitely worth going there first. But not every opportunity is advertised there. So you should leave no stone unturned because of how competitive it is. There are other places to look as well. And other places to look include the company website, all right, or individual companies themselves. You can check out vacancy sections because very often they will advertise their apprenticeships in their vacancy sections, compile a list of all the local companies in the relevant industry, and go onto the websites to investigate to see if they have any opportunities advertised. Yeah, a lot of apprentices say that's how they found their opportunity, all right? Also, websites like Reed and Indeed, normal job hunting sites, sometimes there'll be apprenticeships advertised on there too, again, because there's a job component to it, yeah? Social media, some opportunities will use Twitter and Facebook to advertise their apprenticeships. LinkedIn, though, is probably an even better one to use. LinkedIn, in case any of you don't know, is a professional social media network that professionals use to share expertise and experience and resources and opportunities, including job opportunities and including apprenticeship opportunities. All right. So it'd be a good idea for your young person to get a LinkedIn account just for the apprenticeship hunt, I would suggest. All right. So finally, friends and family, word of mouth, people you know in the community, in your families, in the neighborhood who work in the relevant industry, speak to them because they might be able to signpost you towards some interesting opportunities. All right. And a vacancy snapshot, if any of your young people are interested in the prestige of working for a big name brand, a lot of those big name brands like Google or EDF advertise on vacancy snapshot. So worth looking up vacancy snapshot. Okay, so how can you tell as a parent trying to support your child if an apprenticeship is good, right? It's a question we often get and it can be difficult. So one thing you can do is look at the pay and compare the pay to other apprenticeship opportunities in the same industry, yeah? If the pay is good, that suggests that they value their staff and they're trying to attract the best people. If it isn't, you might want to think twice. All right. Progression. Is it obvious from the job description that there is good career progression for apprentices? And you can always have your child ask that question to the employers by giving them a phone call or an email, for example. Is it permanent or fixed term? If it is permanent, obviously that's better. If it's fixed term, you might want to ask, how often do fixed term employees go on to be made permanent? What training provider is used? That is to say, what college or university will the apprentice be studying at? And obviously you can check their government inspection records and that kind of thing, and you might know them by reputation as well. So you can make a judgment based on that. And finally, is the role varied according to the job description? All right, so obviously you want them getting as much experience as possible. The more varied the role, the better it will be for them. Other things you can do to support your children is to develop what we call commercial awareness. And now commercial awareness just means keeping appraised with the relevant industry news and the relevant company news. All right, so you can do this by following them, again, creating a LinkedIn account, following them on Twitter, buying any industry magazines, subscriptions that might be helpful, and downloading specific company literature. If your child is applying for an apprenticeship at a company, they should always research the company as much depth as possible, because they should be referring to that during the interview. All right, so it's really important to keep up to date with company literature and follow them on social media. All right, you can download companies' competency frameworks too. Very often, competency frameworks set out the ethics and behaviors that individual companies expect their employees to have, and your child could match their answers to questions in interview based on those competency frameworks, yeah, and even include that in the application form. The apprenticeship standard. Now, the apprenticeship standard is a two or three page document that details the knowledge and skills an apprentice should get from doing any given apprenticeship. All right, so you can go onto the Institute for Apprenticeships page, and you can find the apprenticeship standard for every single type of apprenticeship, and you can download that and have a look at it, so you'll know exactly what your young person should expect from the course that they're doing. All right. Really important to visit open days. Some companies do open days. BT used to do open days, for example, and they have an apprenticeship section. If you go to university open days or college open days, ask about their apprenticeship links. Are they linked to any apprenticeship organizations, for example? Stay connected, we've mentioned already, social media, magazines. Speak to apprentices. If you visit a website I'll talk about in a moment, AmazingApprenticeships.com, there are pre-recorded interviews of apprentices talking about their experiences. Always good to find out information from them, and it will be subject by subject. So if your child is interested in engineering, you can find an engineering apprentice speaking on the live broadcast section of Amazing Apprenticeships. Finally, research the recruitment process. Again, I would stress you're applying to specific companies, not to universities or colleges. So make sure you research the recruitment process of each company, because each one might be slightly different. Okay. Further on Amazing Apprenticeships, there are monthly parents packs available for download, and that will really help support you in your supporting of your child in their apprenticeship search. There are even translated resources into a number of different languages, if English is a second language, so that could be helpful as well. And as I say, just some more of the Amazing Apprenticeship opportunities. Again, there are quizzes and word searches and challenges, practice interviews, guides to support people in their apprenticeship hunts further. If you have any further questions...
Sorry, Bradley. Yeah. I think there's someone trying to present.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, it should be okay now if you turn on your presenting.
Oh, did it stop presenting?
Yeah, it stopped now. So yeah, yours has kind of gone off now. So
okay. Okie dokie, let's have a look. Let's go back on here and present now. Window. We're actually very close to the end anyway, folks. There's not much more to show you, but here we go. Right, so, oh dear, it's taking me right back to the beginning. It would do, wouldn't it? Difficult. Okay. All that really remains for me to do is just to let you know that although we've got a Q&A coming up here momentarily, if you would like further information afterwards, please do check us out on the following links. You can visit the National Apprenticeship Service on the internet, their website, or you can search for apprenticeships on gov.uk, or give that number a call to reach the National Apprenticeship Service. You can also download Fire It Up apps onto your phones to keep appraised of some of the latest opportunities. Follow us on Twitter at Apprenticeships. But we are about to break for questions. So I would like to thank you, first of all, for your attention and for listening this evening. Do we have any questions anyone would like to ask? I will stop sharing now. Come back onto the thing so I can see. Any questions? If you have any questions, you can either unmute.
Can you, Bradley, can you see the chat function? Nobody's put any questions in yet, but if anyone does want to ask a question, on the right-hand side, there should be a chat section, so you can just type any questions in there. So if we just give them a minute.
No worries, no worries.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi there. Sorry, I did have one question.
Okay.
In the current climate with what's going on with coronavirus, how realistic is it that companies will be taking apprenticeships on?
So there has been a reduction compared to this time last year in terms of the amount of apprenticeships that are available. But apprentices, it is government subsidised. So from their perspective, it makes a lot of sense to take on an employee that is a little bit cheaper than a regular qualified employee. So they get subsidised for it, and it invests in the company's development going forward. All right. But they're not going anywhere. The government funding has been ring fenced. The Chancellor's made that clear. The funding's not going anywhere. But you're right. There has been a reduction compared to this time last year. So again, I would just re-stress my earlier advice. Don't be putting all your eggs in the one basket. They should be applying, if they're about to finish sixth form, they should be applying for, university, regular university, and degree apprenticeships if they're interested in degree apprenticeships, or if they're just finishing year 11, again, applying for different colleges as well as for their apprenticeship positions. Yeah. So just make sure that they're applying for as much as possible.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have some more questions come through on the chat. There was a question about how the presentation will be shared, but I'll let Miss Reffold answer that at the end, because I'm not sure what she's going to do with it. Do Year 10 students wait till joining the start of Year 11 in September 2000 before they should start applying? If I've understood that question correctly, then yes, they should apply during Year 11, not during Year 10, but they can do their research in Year 10, get an idea of what's out there, so they can hit the ground running straight away in September. Yeah. But so as I say, it's important they apply throughout the academic year. And actually, if they get their position sorted early in Year 11, that's one thing they don't have to be worrying about when they're facing their exams at the end of the year. Yeah. Very stressful if they're doing exams and they're frantically trying to find an apprenticeship position. So absolutely get them well researched during Year 10 so they can hit the ground running early in Year 11. One other question. Okay, yeah. Student who does oh dear, sorry, it's taking me away. Student who goes to apprenticeships for the nursing, does he or she have a chance to study for the doctor later after completing the nursing degree? If they did, they would have to. I don't know the specifics of how the medical industry works with their training, but I think they'd probably have to start again, if you like. It might put them in good stead in terms of applying to university to study for to study as a doctor. but they would have to start again. I'm not sure it would be directly transferable. All right. Do the apprenticeships guarantee a job at the end? So there are no guarantees as such, but as I said, the employability levels are very good for apprentices post-apprenticeship. Most of the time, the company will keep them on because they've invested all that time and energy in them. All right. So there are no guarantees. The prospects are good. I'd rather be an apprentice finishing an apprenticeship position in a company that already knows me and wants to keep me on than leaving, university in this climate, in this recession, with these unemployment rates. Yeah. Do we get hold of how do we get hold of the apprenticeship packs? If you go onto amazingapprenticeships.com, again, that's amazingapprenticeships.com, you can download the packs from there. You'll see there are different ways of navigating the site. You'll see a parents section, and you can go through the parents section and find the information there. All right. Can a child be in a college and be in an apprenticeship at the same time? So if the young person is doing a level 2 or level 3 apprenticeship, that 20% study time will always be at a college. So 20% of their time will be at the college, usually 1 day a week, but it can be broken up differently. But they couldn't be doing an apprenticeship, a full-time apprenticeship course, whilst also studying for a separate course at college as a separate thing, because there wouldn't be enough time. They wouldn't have the time, the time of the day. Yeah, but they will always be studying at a college if they're doing a level 2 or 3 apprenticeship. What happens if you join an apprenticeship and then find out this is not for you? Can you leave the apprenticeship? Yeah, you can leave the apprenticeship. Companies don't generally, they don't want young people who hate what they're doing and don't want to be there. They know that's not a productive way of getting work out of people. It's not that uncommon for apprentices to drop out during their apprenticeship year. And if any young person drops out of, one course, one apprenticeship program, one university course, people don't give them too much of a hard time for that. For future employers, it's only if they've dropped out of loads of stuff that employers might think they're a bit flaky. All right. So don't apply for loads of different things and drop out of loads, but one thing would be fine. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Is it possible to sign up for multiple apprentices? So you can apply for as many different apprenticeship programs as you like, but you can only do one at a time. Yeah. So apply for as many. There is no cap. You can apply for as many as you like, but only do one at a time. Are there restrictions on apprenticeships if you have not been in the country for 3 years? No, there is not. It's again, different companies might have different companies will have different entry criteria. If the young person has UK qualifications, if they finished their GCSEs, and their GCSEs are British qualifications, or their A levels are British qualifications, the companies will accept them on that basis. All right. If there are no further questions, I will hand back to Mrs. Another couple more have come through.
All right.
Can you get fired from an apprenticeship, or do they give you the opportunity to improve? It's like any job in that sense. They can fire you, but you do have protections. Like, again, the worker can't be summarily dismissed or fired for no cause. It's the same with apprenticeships. If it's unreasonable, they could appeal for unfair dismissal, just like any other worker could. All right. But because they're young, because they're being trained, the companies won't usually give them more than they can chew, because that's obviously going to be the recipe for disaster. But yeah, they have the same kind of protections that other adults would have. So there's no restriction for apprenticeships. Again, you can apply for as many as you like. UCAS, I forget if it's 5 or 6, because I've been out of teaching in school for so long. But there is a cap. But for apprenticeships, degree apprenticeships, other apprenticeships, you can apply for as many as you like. Are there restrictions if your visa does not allow state benefits? I am not sure, to be honest, about that one. I don't know. I do not know. I'd have to do some research. I can research that and let Miss Reffold know, and she can email you the answer. Sorry, I'm not quite sure about that one. Is there a probation period? For permanent positions, again, it will depend on the company. Again, it's jobs they're applying for. So it will depend. That's something that will come out during the application and interview process. You're very welcome. So unless further questions come through, I will thank you all very much for your excellent questions and for your time, and wish you and your children all the best of luck for the future. And I'll pass back to Mrs. Reffold.
Thank you very much, Bradley. Thank you all so much for joining, and thank you as well to Mrs. Murray from Noah Hill for all her support in promoting this in Noah Hill. I will email out the latest parent apprenticeship pack along with the slides from this, if Bradley would be so kind as to send them over to me. Sure. This has also been recorded, so we will find a way of getting that out as well. This information is given to students in school. We have obviously got some extra sessions running in the next few weeks, so Bradley will be back next week to talk about the new T-level programs, which, if I'm honest, I don't know much about myself, and traineeships. And I'm sure he'll cover kind of the differences between those and apprenticeships as well. So if you are interested in T-levels or traineeships, please do log on next week, but I will email out more details from that. So if there's no other questions, I'll let you all go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.